Okay, hey, let's do some work real quick. Okay,
Okay.
let me put this on the screen. Where is it? Right there. All right. I just copy pasted this from the last one, deleted some stuff, and I put bold on whatever I thought we
Yeah.
should probably talk again about.
Yeah.
Uh,
I honestly didn't have the chance this week at all to do anything.
yeah, that's no problem. I mean, you did. We did do this. We talked. You
Yeah.
said you wanted to talk about the.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happened was um, I actually usually listen to something like that while I'm running. So I listen to the whole thing, and every time that something is brought up, either by Dawkins or Ayan, I think, okay, that seems to be something that I could comment on. But because I'm running, I'm not writing down
Oh, it's
or
fine though, but they're all in your head now, and when we discuss it, it'll come out.
yeah. There are so many rabbit holes in this. So you can start something, and it's something that on its own would be a whole discussion. So it cannot be a full discussion just going through the whole thing all at once. But at least I think it's something that's significant enough that it requires some discussion.
Well, maybe we could get more focused on what it is we want to talk about in that thing, knowing that there could be 5 different topics that could produce 5 different podcasts, and maybe we only make the one best one, the first
Okay,
one that we think is the most.
I can give you the gist of what I have in mind. Um, so I think the claim that Ayan is making by saying that atheism is not a philosophy of action, and that there is um, some events that are taking place. She talks a little bit about, well, not a little bit. That's actually an emphasized point. She talks about wokeism and how, because of the fact that atheism is not a philosophy of action, certain nefarious parties are taking advantage of that, mainly Muslims compared to Christians, for example, that have backed away from the arena in Europe. And that's why she's advocating a form of more or less philosophy of action that's based on Christianity. And I think that there are so many issues with this stance. I understand where it's coming from, but I don't think that this is the way to treat the situation.
So if I was here with her and I was talking about that with her, I would say, well, why can't we just do Christianity without the God?
Yeah, yeah. So
Which
there
is
are,
what I think she was doing before,
well, yes,
in a sense. When
but
anyone calls themselves like the other person she was speaking to, Dawkins, he calls him. I heard that he used the phrase about himself, cultural Christian.
yes, that's
And
true.
if you listen to Ayan Hersey and what I remember 10 years ago, she said something like, in the context of somebody leaving Islam, yeah, go ahead, go to Christianity. That's good,
No, no,
even though
that's
she wasn't.
yeah. So I even though she might have been lumped with the new atheism, which includes Dawkins, I don't really think that she ever was part of that group in the same sense, because she was coming from a completely different
I don't know
background.
what group you mean.
So I'm talking about Dawkins, Sam Harris, Hitchens, and Daniel Dennett.
Did you say new atheism, or does that in my
Yeah,
head just
yeah, yeah.
okay?
No, no,
I
new
don't know what people mean when they say that. What's the
uh,
old atheism?
well, okay. So there are the uh, so before the 2000s, basically, you had traditional atheism that mainly had to do with was confined in circles of philosophy departments and in books and things of that sort. And then you started seeing something like the God delusion.
Activism.
Yeah, there was a lot of activism that took place then, mainly through the work of Dawkins, Hitchens, and Harris. To some extent, Dennett, although Dennett is an actual professional philosopher, he used to teach at a university, and so he's in a different category. But he usually is affiliated with this group. There are others like Victor Stenger, who also wrote a lot. He even wrote a whole book called The New Atheism. And so many of the people have been looking at this as a kind of an amateurish attempt at philosophy. It's never really a true philosophy, mainly through the work of Dawkins, because he's not a philosopher, he's a biologist. But to some extent also Sam Harris. He's a neuroscientist, but he also does philosophy, does a kind of a spiritualism that mixed with ideas.
At least he's not one of the fucking idiots who are saying that there's no morality.
Well, yeah.
But they say it differently. They say morality is subjective.
Yeah,
we need some people, some new atheists who are clearly saying, well, I guess Sam Harris is one of them. I mean, he wrote a book called something about morality. What is it?
Well, he has is it The Moral Landscape, or is that
Moral Landscape? The Moral Landscape, yes. And he's saying that morality is objective, although I don't agree with the reasoning of why it's objective or what it means by that. He's more focused on, like, we'll know more about suffering when we understand the chemistry of the body more.
Yeah,
I care more about the philosophy of it all.
Yeah, so
I don't need to know about the chemistry, really.
So there are many things that one can agree or disagree with him about the way that he presents things, but when it comes to Ayan's speech, if you look at her books, like something like Heretic, and you go through the whole thing, Heretic and the other book,
you know, this just reminds me, I always have, for the last 14 years, I've been having this dispute with people about morality being objective. They say it's subjective.
I have a problem with this issue. I don't necessarily think it's objective, but
we talked about this. You said it was during the June 14th. Yeah.
So any kind of objectivity that might be related to this has to do with our ability to live together. Saying that stealing is wrong. Why is stealing wrong, for example? It's because it's going to hurt the communion that people have together when they're living together. One person is going to be hurt, or the group as a whole is going to be hurt if this is something that is normalized. So in that sense, this is something that needs to be prohibited, that needs to be...
I mean, you're starting with an earlier concept, which is you first have to have the concept of property. And then you can have the concept of theft.
Yeah.
And by having the concept of property, you're already saying, don't take my shit. Like, that already implies theft is wrong.
Well,
so I guess we should discuss the concept of property first and why that should exist.
Yeah, but it's more fundamental than that, because you can think about societies where communism is advocated, and so the concept of property is not...
They still have property.
Yeah.
They just want to say a bunch of the property is not yours. They still have property, like your own clothes.
Yeah, but it's not as fundamental as when you're considering this in a capitalistic society. So
why does that matter? That it's not fundamental?
In the case of in the case of something like communism, it does not play as crucial a role as when it comes to a capitalist society.
Right, but what we were talking about was morality is objective, and then you brought up theft, and I just slightly changed it to property, and then you brought up communism. The point is, morality is still objective in all the cases. The point is saying there is a right and wrong. Doesn't mean that it's saying it's easy for us to figure out what is right and wrong. It's very hard. It's harder, like we said during June 14th, it's harder than it is to figure out physics.
I don't think maybe I'm not sure what you're referring to about the what was said then, but in terms of what I personally think about right and wrong as something that objectively exists independent of people, I don't think this is
like whether or not we have a disagreement is a fact of reality independent of whether you or I believe we have a disagreement.
Well, when it comes to morality, if you're going to have a disagreement, it's going to have some kind of a human context. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but there's facts involved on, for example, as an example, whether or not we disagree is a fact in reality, independent of you or me, like what we believe about it.
But that's not talking about morality. That's talking about objectivity in general.
Okay, that's like the foundation of morality, because morality is things like, how do you deal with disagreements?
Well, the disagreements could lead to actions, and the actions themselves are where morality starts to enter into the discussion.
And the point is, morality hinges on some of these underlying things that are not even part of morality, like whether or not a disagreement exists.
It's all an issue of interests, not disagreements or lack thereof.
Our interests can disagree.
So when we
try to make them agree.
Yeah, when you have,
which is a morality issue.
So a lion has interests, a deer has interests. They're going to conflict. One of them is going to try to chase the other to eat them. Is that bad or good? It's not.
Well, I don't care about them. We can change ours, though.
Change ours, as in
what? We can change our interests. We use reasoning to do that.
Give me an example.
We can discuss our disagreements and then change our mind about it, and then we're not disagreeing anymore. After some discussion, or even without discussion, because you do it with a baby.
Not necessarily. I think when it comes to interests, if they correspond to certain needs and motivations, I don't think ideas can actually be as effective in changing whatever it is that you need or think that you will need based on that.
Well, that's still part of morality, and it's still objective in the sense that, okay, suppose you have an interest and it's not changing at the moment. I should not bulldoze over that interest.
I think we're talking about different things to some extent.
Maybe we have different ideas of what morality is.
Yeah, possibly. That's possible.
For me, it's just ideas about how to act. So every action had an idea to do it. That idea is morality, and it's all of them.
Well, for me, morality has to do with rules that humans devise in order to live together, basically.
So that's a subset of the thing I said.
Not necessarily. I think that's the fundamental thing that drives what morality is. And that's why I don't think it's objective.
Well, let me rephrase. It's a subset, and that subset drives the rest.
So when I'm talking about living together in a society, that's the basic fact that starts the idea of.
Here's the thing, though. We're just having a semantics problem now.
What
we can do is define two moralities, and we can talk about them separately. So there's like, we're gonna do this with the free will too. What ideas about how to act, and yours is ideas or rules of society living together. People interactions.
Yeah, practical rules. The idea here is that it's practical rules and not abstract directives.
These are both objective, so
no, I disagree that the second one is objective.
This one?
The second one, I wouldn't even call it objective or subjective. I would call it relative.
Yeah, that's the same as subjective. Every time I've seen them used. Or you'll say relative. I'll leave it that way.
Yes.
So what does that mean, relative?
It means that you can see certain societies, for example, incriminate homosexuality. Other societies would not do the same thing.
And I would say one of them is wrong, the other one's right.
I would say that this is what this society is. If suppose that 99%.
Why would you change to the other one? Do you?
Why would you change to which other?
Yeah,
one?
let's say you're in a society that has the thing of one way, and you want it to go the other way. Why would you want it to change?
Okay, suppose that in a society, 99% of the people think that homosexuality is wrong. In that society, it is going to be wrong. If you are the 1% who thinks it's not wrong, that does not objectively mean that it's wrong to incriminate it. That's what I'm saying.
So that does not objectively mean that it's wrong to what?
To incriminate it.
Yeah, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about, suppose there is a God. What would he say about that thing? Is it right or wrong? That's
a God?
Right. Huh?
A God?
Yeah, I said, suppose there's a God. If this doesn't work for you, I can use different language that doesn't include God.
Okay.
But suppose there is a God. Does he say that thing is right or wrong? That's what I'm talking about. Does that exist?
I prefer that you phrase it without a God. I'm not sure.
Without a God. Okay.
If it's relevant.
So let's just do examples. Murder. Is that right or wrong? Like, if you're able to say it's right or wrong, then in my understanding, you're calling it objective.
I'm not sure if it's right or wrong. It depends on the situation.
Well, murder is not even the right word to use because inside the word is wrongness.
Yeah, there's something that's incriminating the whole thing to begin with.
So we should use different words. So let's go with rape.
That's still of the same category as...
So is it... Give me an example where you think it would be okay to rape.
Okay, what I'm not saying it's okay or not okay, because that's actually what you're trying to categorize it as something that's right or wrong. That's not what I'm saying. So rape is going to be harming a member of the society, and rape is going to involve some non-consensual acts that would have otherwise, if done properly, would not be a bad thing. And in that sense, it's going to be a bad thing.
That's what I mean by wrong. That's just different words, but same concept. And that's what I mean by, if there can be a right or wrong like that, then it's subjective. Sorry, objective.
Okay, so if you want to put some kind of a general criterion, one that exceeds all this, it's something that has to do with disrupting the cohesion of the society and maximizing suffering. Anything that infringes on that can be considered immoral, if you want that phrased in a kind of an objective language.
Well, you're getting into details now. I guess see here, it sounds like we were doing this now. And for me, this was, is there a right and wrong? And then you said no, but then you said good, bad, which to me is the same thing.
Well, see, the right and wrong is something that's too abstract. What I'm talking about, again, is talking about practical situations that have to do with...
Okay or not okay. And another way to say it is do it or don't do it. Like, because this thing you're saying, good and bad, that you're saying do it or don't do it.
So again, putting it in that phrase is what I'm objecting to.
What phrase? Which phrase? Which phrase should I use instead?
So what I'm saying is that you put a general directive that has to do with not infringing on the rights of the people in the society that
Oh,
you're.
you're getting into details again. I'm just saying, does it exist? And then you can
No, no,
describe what it is.
it's not about details. It's about defining it from a practical point of view, and that just stopping at that point.
Are you? It sounds like you're agreeing with me then.
I'm agreeing about the actual situation, but the underlying idea that you're presenting, that's what I'm objecting to. Talking
Which
about
idea
it,
did you mean there?
that separation between right and wrong. So you would say murder is wrong, for example.
Murder was confusing because it's already built into the word rape.
Let's put it with something that might be a little bit ambiguous, like killing. Let's not call it murder.
Well, not
Killing.
all killing is wrong. So
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
you're just saying context matters?
So it's exactly a context thing.
Okay, so I also believe context matters always, and I still think it's objective, meaning like it's not that there's context isn't a problem for objectivity, because even physics needs context.
Well, no. If there's context, that basically negates the idea that there is something that's objective. Like,
then I don't even know any of these words you're using. We would have to start. We would have to start defining all the words now.
Like when you look at the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill. What does that even mean?
I think you're talking about universality now.
That's objectivity.
You're saying it has to be 100% universal, meaning like I don't even know what that word means, by the way, because there's different degrees of universality. I have an idea and it applies in 10 situations. It is universal for these 10 situations. Then you make a bigger idea that incorporates that. This applies to 1,000 situations.
Yeah,
and you keep getting more general.
That's including that would to some extent include the idea that it's going to be objective, because if it's always going to be true, that's going to be true regardless.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by true in that context. We can't be perfect. We're going to have flaws.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. That you cannot use ideas like
the same as in physics. We're objective in physics. We also don't have infallibility there. If it's not a problem there, why is it a problem in morality?
Because in the case of morality, you try to phrase things in rules, in unchangeable rules.
I don't do that. I think that's stupid.
Well, if you're going to be not doing that, then you should refrain from saying right and wrong.
I don't agree with that. You're one of the people telling me I can't use the word evil.
I don't think there's such a thing as evil.
It's just a fucking word. It means not okay. This is semantics.
Well, that's not what many people think about when they say evil.
Yes, and they're confused about what I mean by the word when I say it. And that's not a problem for me. That's a problem for them.
Well, that's a problem for both people, because there is no objective arbiter that would say this is evil, this person's not going to...
No, but you can write sentences that explain things. And you can't use the word evil by itself without explaining what the fuck you mean. Because of those people.
Yeah, no.
Have a different conception of what that word is.
Yes.
And come on, like if somebody asks me a question on like Reddit or something, and let's say it's a kind of question that you're kind of expecting a couple paragraphs, but let's say it needs a book to really get it across, I'm still going to give just a couple paragraphs, and I'm going to use the word evil. And if they don't get it, well, they can ask more questions.
No, that's fair. I'm not saying probably we veered off where we were headed.
We were talking about whether morality is objective, and before that, we were talking about how the old atheists were not doing any activism, and the activism that we're talking about is like actively in the media criticizing evil shit that we are seeing.
Yeah. And that this stuff is sloppy philosophy in a sense that it's
I think the Harris and Dawkins is sloppy philosophy.
Dawkins in particular. Dawkins is not a trained philosopher, and very often, especially in places like the God Delusion and in many other places, you can actually already see that that he does not present really arguments that would satisfy a professional philosopher. Not that I'm a professional philosopher or trained.
Well, I think Harris is in that group too.
To a lesser extent, but yes. And
and I think David Deutsch is not in that group. He's a real philosopher.
I am not. Well, he's more of a philosopher than Dawkins, but I cannot really make a judgment there. But you forgot to include Hitchens actually in the.
I don't even know much about Hitchens with respect to this kind of stuff.
Okay, so Hitchens is a journalist. And
yes, I know that.
So the quality of things that he writes, I would actually compare to Ayan. So he's probably of the four.
I put Ayan Hirsi up on the level of around. I don't know if she's better or less, but around the same range of David Deutsch. But I say that because both of them claim to be Popperians, and I've seen their ideas, and you can tell, at least from the view perspective of a Popperian, that they are using Popperian ideas. And what he did is to say all knowledge is objective. So they're able to use that concept and objectivity in general and the general methods of knowledge creation in all areas, including morality and politics and economics.
Well, do you have certain situations that you can cite about Ayan that justify that?
You mean that she's a Popperian? I don't have it right now, but I have it right now where she said so.
Does she explicitly say that?
About Karl Popper? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm find it, but this is like 10 years ago.
Yeah. So.
And again, it's not just she's claiming it. I can see Popper's ideas coming out of her.
No. The fact that she is a person of action, that's actually wonderful. That's great. Which is actually the reason why, when she was being considered an atheist, that was problematic, because atheism is more or less a statement about some abstract ideas that then propagates into implications about religion. And so when in that discussion that they were having, where she was denouncing atheism as such, I never actually considered her to be an atheist to begin with. I mean, she obviously.
I don't even know what that means. How could you not consider her an atheist if she doesn't believe in God?
Well, because the discourse that she has, at least in the books that I have read by her, we're presenting her as someone who is renouncing Islam as such, beginning with Islam, not talking about
I get it. If you renounce Islam, yeah, that doesn't mean you don't believe in God. Yeah.
And so her discourse was always focused in that area, and so associating.
So she never openly said. I could be misremembering. She never openly said.
No, I think she has said that she was explicitly an atheist, and that's why she was considered as part of that group. But what I'm saying is that from the experience that I have from her books, this was not a thing. It wasn't really a big theme in what she was presenting.
So go back to Dawkins and Harris. They have a theme of like talking always about there's no God.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know Dawkins wrote The God Delusion, so he's trying to convince people to atheism.
Yeah,
I guess what you're saying is, Ayan Hirsi's books, she wasn't trying to argue against God. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, even Christopher Hitchens, he wrote against religion in general and wrote against God, but he wasn't writing as a philosopher. He was writing more or less. He does have what is it called? I forgot the book. it was a book that went through all religions, including Islam, to some extent, and he does have some arguments, but it's not one that is written by a professional philosopher as such. And so I was thinking of them being in the same category in terms of atheism. Even Ayaan Hirsi Ali less so, because it wasn't really the theme of what she was writing about. The traumatic experiences that she
I think
had.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, the emphasis was different, and
So
so
let me ask you this though. So we were saying, or at least for these two, for me, I don't know much about Dennett, but these two were getting the moral philosophy wrong. Is kind of what we're saying, and I guess you're and I was saying he gets it right, and I don't know much about Hitchens, but I think Hitchens gets it right. I don't know how philosophical it is, but what are you saying about Ayaan Hirsi? Is she in those books that you read? Is she speaking well about morality?
yes. So it wasn't the issue of morality in that talk, though. She was being presented as someone who embraced Christianity.
Oh no, I meant older. I meant before that event, like in the last 10 years, in the books you read.
Yeah, I mean the general discourse that she has is definitely one that presents very well-defined moral stances about all sorts of topic, well-written, cohesive ideas that are presented in that vein. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm understanding from you that that's why you didn't put her in the same. Well, you were really focusing on that she's not arguing on about God, but the other difference between her and Harris and Dawkins is that she's arguing well about morality, where they're arguing badly about it.
Well, are they arguing badly about it? That's a different issue. But I'm not sure if that's actually the main point of contention between them. The issue here has to do with her embracing Christianity because it's a philosophy of action that has already been proven, quote unquote, for many centuries, whereas atheism is not one of action, and therefore
well, atheism isn't even a group that makes sense to talk about. What she should be talking about, or us should be talking about, is like, as an example of a recent thing, there's people that call themselves objectivists, and there's another term it goes by, which is Randians, but that's the people who hate the objectivists, so they call them Randians. Because that's the philosophy named by Ayn Rand. And in her philosophy, she says morality is objective. It's atheist too. She's very hardcore against God, although I don't know that she argues against God ever. That I remember. I read a few of her books. I don't remember her talking against God, but she also never talks about God.
As far as I know, and my knowledge of her is limited, she does not explicitly talk about God as such.
Or the reverse, right? She doesn't say. Yeah, but it's kind of implied she's atheist. Also, we know where she came from, and that was a very atheist culture. I think, Russia at the time. I don't know what time we're talking about anyway.
50s, I think 50s, 40s, or is it before?
Okay. Why did I bring her up? I remember why. It's an atheist philosophy in the sense that it is a philosophy from an atheist, and there's no God in it. Like, none of its arguments are because God said so. None of it. And it has a lot of followers now compared to, okay, if you say Rami's philosophy, it has a lot of philosophers compared to Rami's philosophy. And it's very activist. Okay, there's a lot of activism happening by people that call themselves objectivists. Today it's happening, and some of them are famous, like they're successful in spreading their ideas. Like Ayn Rand sold, and still her books are still selling. She's dead. Her books are still selling. Okay,
Yeah.
Her philosophy is still spreading. But along with your argument and Ayn Hersey's, I don't know if you were arguing that, but you were explaining what she said, which is, if we consider atheism as a group, as a cohesive unit that is moving in one direction or something, it's more like a bunch of loose things. Most of it is shit. It's a bunch of idiots that aren't doing anything serious. I think objectivism and what Ayn Rand did, that's pretty good. I think it has a lot of flaws that other philosophies don't have. Like if you look at Karl Popper, his philosophy, he's also an atheist. None of what he says is argued by because there's a God. He also doesn't argue against God. It's not a thing he cares about. And there's moral ideas coming out of his philosophy. Not so much like Ayn Rand, though. She makes it like a lot of hard rules or whatever.
I mean, she has a lot of influence on politics, and so that should tell you that there is a lot of actionable things that come out from her philosophy compared to Popper's, which is more methodological, that has to do with so many things that.
Well, that's partly from the way they started. She kind of started on her own. She wasn't part of a university or anything. She started a newsletter. She got famous that way, Popper, he was in a university. He was a philosopher paid by a university, and he got famous starting that way. And then he got fame outside of that a little bit. She's way more famous than him. If you were to find out who calls themselves a Popperian versus objectivist in the world, it's easily 1,000 to 1, I bet.
That's exactly because of what I mentioned, because of the fact that her philosophy had actionable implications that people can adopt.
Well, I wasn't comparing to Christianity yet. I was comparing objectivism to Popperianism. They both were around at the same time, so they're as old as each other. There's way more people calling themselves objectivists than Popperians. But if you want to compare it to Christians beat both of them by another 1,000. Yeah. And that's what Ayn Hersey's saying. She's saying we need to join with the existing culture of people already doing all this activism.
Yeah. So my objection mainly was that this is not a statement about atheism to begin with. And that's basically what Dawkins points out right from the beginning, that it's more or less political Christianity than actual ideology about the crucifixion, etc. That the implications. He actually pushes her to comment about these things, and she really doesn't really make actual comments. And I can understand that if it's being presented as political Christianity.
The part that I heard wasn't about the political stuff. It's not because I just didn't watch much of it. But the part that I did see of why she became a Christian, it was a psychological thing in herself.
Yes. She
was depressed for 10 years. She went to a therapist. Therapist said, "Hey, did you consider maybe you have a lack of spiritual, a void of spiritual, whatever?" I guess there was some implication about Christianity. I don't know. She was vague. And then she became a Christian, and then she wasn't depressed anymore. I was never depressed like that, so I didn't have to solve
it. I understand. It's what I'm. This is also a point that Dawkins did bring up at some point. This is a kind of a personal experience. Is that a philosophical statement? I'm not sure. Or is it a generalizable philosophical statement that you can present to others? Not necessarily. Maybe if she had talked to a Buddhist monk, she would now be advocating for some kind of Buddhism. It just so happens that she is now living in the West.
No, I think she would have picked the one that is the major culture that is somewhat functional in the country she's in with all
Yeah,
the
that's
problems.
yeah, definitely. So it's circumstances that have to do with her personal position at that particular point of time, and that was the problematic part.
What I would ask her is, am I allowed to join in the group being an atheist? And if she says
Yeah,
then the atheism,
yeah, I don't think she would object to that at
but
all.
that's the point. That means the God part doesn't matter. If she lets me in, then it means the God part doesn't matter. So it's just the cultural Christian again.
Which again is something that Dawkins adopts very freely and has no problem with it, because that's who he is. I would call myself a cultural Muslim. I have so much of the
Oh shit! I don't call myself that. I'm a cultural Christian.
No,
what's a cultural Muslim?
I come with all sorts of baggage that comes from being a Muslim. Even though I consider myself to be an atheist, I would still have no problem adopting the label cultural Muslim.
What is the good parts of cultural Islam that you kept?
Good parts, I would say good parts or bad parts. It's like having that.
Forget the word good. Tell me what parts you kept. Then I will figure out on my own whether it was
okay,
good or bad.
Let me tell you what I mean by that. I mean by that, I have, for example, receding hairline right now. This is something that's going to accompany me for a while. This is something that's been part of me. That's a baggage that comes with me. Is it good or bad? It's part of me. The same way that right now I would call Islam as a part of me, because that's how I grew up. I'm not calling
asking you what are the parts that you kept, because you rejected some, right?
Yeah. What I'm talking about is the mode of thinking. When you would say a statement to me, regardless of what it is, the way that my brain is going to process it is going to be in terms of a language that has all these terms and ideas that come from that background. That's what I mean. But I don't think when it comes to adopting any of the actual ideas that came from Islam, I don't actively keep.
Yeah, I think we're using the terminology differently, and it's another one of these. Okay, we got to start defining these better. Anyway, by the way, let's get on point a little bit. We probably talked about this too much. What the point of this was to, I thought we were going to plan a video. How do we want to plan it? What do you want to do?
I don't know, but so my original plan was to actually watch the video the same way that we did with the
final. Pause it when we want.
Yeah, but I don't want us to make any copyright infringement of any sort. So I'm thinking maybe extracting parts of the video that we think would be relevant and then making comments on it. And that I think that would be within the fair use region, instead of just going through the whole thing. The whole thing is very long anyway.
Yeah, and I guess what you're looking for is just this part.
Yeah, and so we can both make comments about the relevant part, and then
so I guess I'll watch. Can you send me the link of the specific one we're talking about? Because I could be confused on which one, but I think I was watching the same thing you were watching.
Yeah, the one I sent you earlier, through the email, that's the one I had.
Okay, I'll look through my email.
But maybe we need to restrict it a little bit more to actually focus on certain parts. So
this part. So I'll listen to the whole thing and I'll see where she talks about this, and I'll put timestamps, and that's the part we'll be watching.
Yeah. So maybe we can pick, I don't know, 10 to 20 minutes
total.
I don't, because we are going to be talking anyway.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just going to become a very long video.
Okay, so I'll try to find at most 20 minutes worth of this topic from that video.
Yeah. And so that would be a good. It would be a good idea. Then we can both present certain things that we talked about here today, and then also relate what's being talked about to the actual content that's discussed in the video.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so that's done. Real quick, I don't know why I wrote this because it feels like it doubles up with something we already wrote right here.
What was it? I didn't get it.
I'm going to read it to you. This was in our first meeting, the one before the official meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And you said in there that you want to, I think it was just this. Yeah, this is that you wanted to transcribe the meeting so you could put it in the magazine and then separately make a video with Arabic subtitles.
Yes. The video with the Arabic subtitles might be a little bit too hard at this point. So do you know if YouTube has generated an SRT file that can be downloaded for what we did?
I don't know. I'm going to write that down. I know you said that before. SRT, does YouTube generate SRT file? And help me understand what you would do with it. Suppose it did.
Okay. So if that happens, then you can just download a transcription, a rough transcription, actually.
And then you edit it and upload it again.
Yes. Once it's
I'm pretty sure YouTube does that.
So YouTube already can let you translate something that's already been transcribed. But the transcription is actually hard to follow. I tried it a few times, and unless the people who are talking deliberately slow enough for it to create a text that matches exactly, it's not a very fun experience to follow. And
okay,
so
well, I'll try to figure this out. So that's on hold. I don't know why I wrote this. I guess during the first meeting, we discussed the potential of you interviewing me. But, you know, that meeting was an interview.
Yeah.
Well, how would an interview be different than that?
No, that would actually be it.
Okay, yeah, I think we've already done it. Yes.
So what I was thinking was to take the transcription of that and just put it in Arabic in the magazine. That was the
yeah. Option. That's this step. So, what do you need anything from me to get this moving along?
Yeah, just go to the video and so I think if you go to the YouTube studio for it,
okay,
or no, actually scroll down a little bit in the video itself. And the CC, when it comes to the CC, no, go up to the actual video. The CC.
CC that.
Yes.
Closed captions.
Yeah, let's see what it says actually when it does when you run the video.
I had just divorced, and I'll try to go fast instead of saying a whole bunch of details.
Okay. I think you should be able to download this. So if you go to the studio, I think you will have access to the transcription.
Yeah, I think I've seen that before. Okay, and then you just want me to send you the SRT file? That's you're saying the next step?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just email you the SRT file if I find it.
Okay, so SRT, sometimes it has some other formats. I think SRT is the main one.
Okay. Did you think of any ideas of what were we saying here? Do you remember? Is there anything here that you still need to do, or is this something we just push off till later, or what?
For the video itself?
No. I just went off to the next. I didn't show you my screen.
Yeah.
I was saying this is a new topic now.
Yeah. No. I didn't have the chance. I didn't have the chance to talk to him.
Okay. And then Sarah, I don't even remember what this was about.
So Sarah is also one of the people who runs XMNA, but I'm not sure about her availability usually.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll just remind you every once in a while.
So it's Mohammed Said, probably the guy you want to get.
Okay, so that's it. We crossed off all the items.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and that was cool. The first half hour was as it was happening, I realized, holy shit, I can cut this out by itself.
Yeah.
And this is a little mini podcast.
Yeah. So, some of the ideas that were discussed there, I would have liked to back up with numbers, with specific ideas, because I have seen papers and things of that sort, but because it's off of the top of my head and I didn't really think about
Well,
details.
that little video could be the birth of a serious podcast, and then we could play that video, or at least get the ideas from it and plan a podcast.
Yeah, definitely. The topic is very important and very interesting.
I'm going to write that here. Let's see. Get first part of this video ready for a new podcast. And right now, I already forgot what the ideas are, but whatever.
Well, we mainly talked about artificial intelligence.
Okay.
But
yeah, that's what was fun. All right. All right, then. So we'll see you Sunday then, okay?
Okay.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.